Hello, welcome to another episode of History in the Dark. I am your host, Darkness the Curse. And before we begin, as always, thank you so much to my generous patrons, my British rail critics, and of course, my underwater train finders. You are the reason why this content remains beneath some high-quality H2O. And today, we are going to do a bit of a return to form. I know it's been quite a few weeks since we discussed another underwater train. And I'm aware of this. Believe me, it was just something I decided to take a break from, as I felt like I was doing that too much, trying to branch out, and yet here we are again, discussing another train that actually has a very bizarre lack of a story around it. This is the tale of the true ghost train beneath Lake Pend Oreille. Lake Pend Oreille, which, yes, that is absolutely how you say it. I am so glad that I looked at the pronunciation for this before I actually did the video, because I was literally minutes away from doing this entire video and calling it Lake Pend Oreille, like an idiot, because I'm sorry, phonetically, that's what it looks like, but no, it's French and it's pronounced Pend Oreille. Also, I remain convinced that France in particular exists solely to make me sound like a fool whenever I attempt to pronounce anything related to their language. But Lake Pend Oreille is in the northern Idaho panhandle and is the largest lake in Idaho. It actually sits astonishingly close to the Canadian border, which would explain why it's been cursed to have a train within it, because any lake in Canada must have a train in it. It's actually a law, as far as I'm concerned. But we are in America. We are talking about Idaho, and we're talking about a random locomotive that just happens to be sitting in Lake Pend Oreille. It was actually discovered by chance by a diver, believe it or not, and when I say chance, I mean chance. Mind you, Lake Pend Oreille is 43 miles long, with a total surface area of 148 square miles. It's a big lake. On top of that, its max depth is about 1,150 feet, or 351 meters. A gentleman by the name of David Finern had heard rumor, stories, whispers of a locomotive sitting in Lake Pend Oreille that went down sometime in 1909. At least that's what people think. No one's really sure exactly. But rumors are just that, rumors. I could tell you anything's in a lake. And knowing my luck, it would actually be there and I'd have to make a video about it. But the point is, things get made up. But as a writer, diver, and explorer, David was curious and wanted to confirm this. David tracked down a local diver around Lake Pend Oreille by the name of Rick. Rick told David he actually had discovered the locomotive and would be happy to go on a dive with him and show him where it was at. David seized the opportunity, and the two dove down to take a look, and even took a handful of pictures to prove that there are remnants of a locomotive, and a whole train, frankly, down there. Now, the wreckage is pretty scattered and sits at a variety of different depths, according to David. There's telegraph wires around 50 feet, but as you get deeper, you find tracks and actual cars from a train at about 125 feet. Most of the couplings and parts of the train are actually in a variety of pieces. There's very little that's honestly intact about this particular wreck, therefore I'm not even going to entertain the notion of salvaging the locomotive involved, as it too is in a variety of parts. David and Rick did take steps to try to identify the nature of this particular wreck, as you've noticed, I haven't discussed how it actually got there. And to be honest, no one seems sure. No one's even sure what the locomotive exactly was, or what railway it would have belonged to. The wreckage implies it's a Baldwin locomotive circa 1900, but that's pretty vague, actually. That does not narrow it down hardly at all. It seems to be an American wheel arrangement, but like I said, pieces, so not helpful. And the whole thing actually got even more mysterious as David asked around. The official Idaho state archaeologist knew nothing about such an accident. The state archivist searched Idaho newspaper stories 20 years on either side of the rumored 1909 date of the event and found absolutely nothing. The local historical society didn't know anything. The official railroad historian had never heard there was a locomotive in Lake Pend Oreille. So how in the world did it get down there? One theory is that it could have been a victim of the Great Fire of 1910. It was a wildfire that burned nearly 3 million acres of land in North Idaho, western Montana, eastern Washington state, and southeast British Columbia, Canada. No one knows exactly what caused the initial fire, but the Great Fire was born out of a bunch of smaller wildfires that were caught up in hurricane-force winds. This created a firestorm that consumed large swaths of land. It killed 87 people, most of which were firefighters, and destroyed numerous structures. This is relevant because the presence of telegraph wires and rails implies that this locomotive may have fallen off a bridge of some kind, or perhaps got caught in a landslide. If the fire had caused this kind of damage, it could have caused the locomotive to simply fall off of where it was, whether it be a bridge or something of that nature. It would also explain why the condition of the train is just awful, being in pieces. The train may have actually burned before it hit the water, therefore it would not exactly be in intact condition prior to even going in the lake. But again, this is just a theory. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely convinced that's the truth, but it is a fair guess. But another less dramatic possibility, and this is just me spitballing here, I'll admit that, but what if it was intentionally dumped? I know there's telegraph wires and stuff, but what if it was a bunch of junk a railway had lying around? They didn't want to pay to have it scrapped, it wasn't worth it, so they just dumped it in the lake. It wouldn't be the first time a company caused an environmental hazard by dumping something they shouldn't just throw away. Again, it's literally just me guessing, but it's a thought. As of now, the actual origin of this locomotive and the rest of the train remain very much a mystery. It's not intact enough to get any reasonable data out of the wreck itself. There's no symbols from railways, no number on the locomotive, there's nothing really to go on. But it is there, and it got there somehow, and perhaps someday we'll know the truth. But unfortunately, I must admit today is not that day. Before we go, a special thank you to all my underwater train finders. Thomas Ward, Lord Captain Von Thrust III, Some Dude 267, Brightline Blue, Joshua Long, Ohio Trucker 1, Royal Hudson 2860, Lord Hoth 444, Arthur Roy, Benjamin Owens, Panzer Kitson 131-232, Mr. Black Rose, Tribal Typhoon, Master of None, Josh Johnson, and Lock Kraken. Till next time, this is Darkness, the Be Fond, farewell.